cool for me because it's like almost the same exact training style for them. But the differences would be the nuances of like actually what we're doing. So fitness
benefit and mindset, how that affects their personal growth. So it's really interesting to hear that side of it, because oftentimes I talk with people and I say, okay, what is your specific
Alchemist by Paul Cohen.
Welcome to the Healthy Investor Podcast with Bob Mastroianni, where you and I will learn from successful real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and other highly driven individuals about their journey and the healthy habits and routines that play an integral part of their growth. All right, welcome back to the Healthy Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Mastroianni. Today I have with me Taylor Rose. Taylor is a former professional track athlete who's now a gym owner and online coach. He pursued a professional track career after graduating with his master's degree in kinesiology and trained with Olympians and world record holders. He continues to coach elite athletes and anyone who wants to optimize their mind and body for performance and optimize health. He's trained a world champion MMA fighter, USA track and field athletes, professional basketball players, and busy professionals looking to achieve their best in life and in business. The hurdles of starting a business while training full-time presented constant opportunities for growth and change. Pushing through a full business shutdown during the pandemic to become a thriving business has empowered in his sense of compassion to serve others in any way, shape, or form. Taylor focuses on creating physical well-being, mental disciplines to improve in all areas of life. All right, sounds good. Taylor, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here as well.
So I have a bunch of questions for you, but I'd love to just jump in first. You know, you're currently a gym owner. In your bio, you talk about some of the hurdles that you faced during the pandemic. We were talking offline before we started. I'm in New Jersey, you're in California, but I know when the pandemic was hot and heavy, especially in the beginning, there was a lot of pushback about people going to the gym and gyms being open during that time frame. Obviously, there was a huge surge in home gym equipment purchases. I remember there was a time where you couldn't buy a bike. So let's talk a little bit about, what your business was at that point and how that affected it.
Yeah, so I have a gym in downtown LA, which got hit with probably some of the heaviest regulations for the pandemic, and we had a full shutdown. But prior to that, we had a whole bunch of classes. So we had boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu. We were a CrossFit affiliate at the time. Tons of different stuff to offer different varieties of fitness to people in that business area of downtown, because it's all that metropolitan area. So it was awesome, offering a whole bunch of different things for people to find their ways to move their bodies in a fun and healthy way. And then the pandemic came around where it was doors closed, nobody in or out for months on end. And that really presented some hurdles, but also opened up some big opportunities as well, which would be like the online space. So right there, what are we going to do? Got to figure that out. How can we serve our members in a way that gives them what they still need, and keeps our doors open in the future when they're allowed to be open? So we had to do a lot of dynamic shifts there. And luckily we were actually able to push through and make it through. And I know, unfortunately, a handful of gyms in LA that closed their doors permanently.
Yeah, and we saw a very similar thing on my side of the country too. I love that you said, that this becomes an opportunity for you. So where's the opportunity for growth? Where's the opportunity to build, and where's the opportunity again to provide value for others? So, you mentioned online. What did that look like? What did some of those transitions look like for you?
So for me, actually, personally, in 2013, I started a brand called the VicFit, which was the virtually integrated coach. Back then, nobody wanted anything to do with it. I didn't know how to market. I was a sophomore in college, I believe. Like, I want to use my degree. Let's get this going early. And nothing. I had maybe one client. So I folded that in, I think, 2014, early 2015. Didn't really do anything with it. But when the pandemic came around, the people that I knew how to do training and fitness, the nutrition, all that stuff, they started to come my way. I'm like, oh, all right, well, let's get this going again. So I rebranded as Crown Athletics. And that's my fitness, mindset, nutrition coaching. But now I blend in with the gym. I'm like, all right, well, doors are closed. Let me do this same service to the gym members so they have something. So it created the opportunity, one, to launch a new business platform, but also to create a hybrid model within my brick and mortar. That way, if anything were to happen again, well, now we have a platform to utilize to continue to give them a service, right? So I actually started onboarding everybody onto my Crown Athletics platform for probably the last year and a half as a complementary model within the gym at Rise Athletics LA. So now we have multiple layers of service, but also protection in case something like that happens again, right?
Yeah, and it's creating another layer of your business, which is really cool. So you're training professionals and you're training, business professionals and also, high level athletes. What are some of the similarities that you see, and then I guess some of the differences that you see when you're creating a training program and focuses and goals when it comes specifically to training?
So for business professionals, high level people like C-level and professional athletes, the mindset's almost exactly the same. So they come into a training session, they just want to kick some butt, right? They want to get after it. They want to see results. They're hard work and already motivating themselves to get it done. And that's what's really cool for me because it's like almost the same exact training style for them. But the differences would be the nuances of actually what we're doing. So fitness enthusiast that's a high level like business person, their program doesn't have to be super detailed like I would for my martial arts fighters, right? So I'm trying to get them to feel good, to optimize their level of thinking and energy throughout the days, and that's not crushing them in the gym, right? Versus an athlete, I may have to kick things up a notch quite a bit to get them to get that adaptation that I'm looking for before we pull back. And they're not going to like me, but my fitness enthusiasts should maintain some level of like towards me. They shouldn't hate me for my programming, right? But nutrition wise, basically the same for unless you're doing some level of weight cut. My weight class athletes, there's always adjustments there. But the mainstay for training, pretty much the same. Obviously, movement patterns change a whole lot. Like, what is the specified thing that we're trying to accomplish for each person? So my programming varies by person, every single person. It doesn't matter what they actually want to accomplish. Like, okay, shoulder injury, cool. Create like a 6-week program where there's something in there to help rehab that over time. But a big component is those people have the same mindset, and it's just fun to train because they just want to get after it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons, one of the springboards for why I created the Healthy Investor podcast is that as I continue to meet successful professionals, entrepreneurs, investors, I've learned that so many of them have some sort of healthy habits, some sort of healthy routines. And it almost seems like even in our conversation here, right, you're actually working directly with those healthy investors. You're working directly with those people who their main focus may not necessarily be to go to the Olympics or to even win a race, but it's adding some sort of health benefit and how that affects their mindset, how that affects their personal growth. So it's really interesting to hear that side of it, because oftentimes I talk with people and I say, okay, what is your specific habit and routine? But you're helping to create that for those specific people.
Right. So those type of people who are looking just to optimize overall life performance. So I'll look at kind of what their routine is like, see what nutrition may be like, bedtime routines, all that. Like I'm looking at everything so they could optimize their performance in work because work is what's going to grow for them or their business themselves. And the cool thing about working them as well is they most often see the value in physical excellence because it leaks over directly into their business. And that's where I think the most successful business owners are now is paying attention to their bodies, not letting their bodies be detrimented by the amount of work they want to do. So giving back 45 minutes, 4 or 5 days a week to yourself in the form of physical exercise, proper nutrition, accelerates business growth, which is basically priceless because who knows what your potential is in your business market. But if you have the time to give back to yourself a little bit, you're going to be able to put more into your business. It's a huge ROI.
I absolutely love that, and that's exactly what I'm talking about here. And I love that you mentioned that they understand that this is going to roll over into your business, and it rolls over into your professional life, your personal life, and all of those things. Also interesting to think. I gathered from our conversation earlier that I'm a bit older than you, but when I first started out in the professional world, I think of my first corporate type job. This was sort of early to mid 90s, and what a successful person sort of looked and acted like then versus now, almost 30 years later, is very different. You mentioned sleep habits. It was almost like a banner to be someone who stayed at the office until all hours of the night and then come back in the next morning and say like, oh, I only got 4 hours of sleep, but I'm right back at it again. And it was almost like, okay, those are the people who are going to get promoted. And really, I think as we learn and grow and develop, I think that's really almost the exact opposite of what we're seeing from successful people today.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's a false sense of security and a badge of honor that shouldn't be strived for, because what that more often than not tells me is they're just being really busy and keeping themselves doing some type of task rather than being productive. If you're productive with your time and you can get hyper focused for short stints, that's way better than spending 3 hours doing something at 25% because you're running on no sleep, caffeinated like no other, and not getting quality work done. So the sleep quality, the nutrition that goes behind it, the overall benefits you get from exercise where you have more glucose control and everything in your body is going to prevent those highs and lows throughout the day where you get into slumps and you just like don't want to work and you get the brain fog. So pulling back on workload to give back to yourself helps literally enhance everything, not just your business, but your family, your overall energy throughout the day. If you have kids, like all of that.
Do you find that most of your professionals that you work with, and when I say professionals, obviously I'm speaking business professionals, do you find that majority of them are utilizing a morning routine versus sort of later in the day or evening, or where do you see the balance there?
Actually, all of my business professional clients have some level of routine, whether they realize it or not.
Hmm.
Through conversations and check-ins, they kind of tell me what's going on, and I try to figure out ways to fit in certain things in for them. It may be as basic as an alarm clock with getting up to have their coffee while they get their day planner going, right? Or look at their schedule for the day. Others, I have people who get up early, 10-minute meditation in the infrared sauna, then they go have their coffee, they get their stretch on, then they go back to the computer again to really dial in on everything. I'm not the hugest fan of morning routines that are given to you. They need to match your lifestyle. So I try to find out what's going on with their lifestyle and where we could fit things in that would benefit them and not be like, oh, I'm doing this just to check it off the box. Like that's not going to help them. So I would say most of my business people do have routines, but it's not like if they miss something, it's the end of the world.
Hmm. Okay, great. And so to dive a little bit deeper, and I guess a little bit of a transition over, normally after speaking about the business perspective, we go into healthy habits and routines, but that seems to be a large part of what we're talking about. But what does that look like for you? What do your routines look like? Obviously, as a coach, you have time periods where you're working with your clients, but I gather that that's probably not the majority of your training, your health and fitness section. So what does that look like for you?
So for me, morning wake up, I try to get some movement done just to get everything flowing, and then I have blocked off times. I started doing this more recently, actually. So 6 to 6:30 morning movement, and I'm not moving the whole time. It's just about 10 minutes on the bike. That gets me going. I get to my computer, and then I have a deep work session. So I'm trying to do a lot of that before my wife and my daughter wake up. That way I can get ahead on programming or checking in with the back end of my gym business, making sure everything's running smooth, answering emails, that type of thing. And then that's when I typically have clients in person. So then I have that training block. And then for me, my block, my calendar's at 1. It says time to work out.
Hmm.
And I have to put it in there because I will work through it, right? But then I've skipped it for a couple weeks one time. or it was sporadic. And I noticed how much mentally it detrimented me in my family and business. So I was like, oh, I really need to get back to it because I am so physically active with everything that I do that if I don't have that release, I'm not gonna be able to keep everything going. So I have bookend days, morning, early work, morning routine of work, training clients. Then it's like dead period midday. That's why I do my training. Then I actually leave to LA to go to the gym at night. So I have like 3 to 5 hour blocks on the bookends, and then I try to fill everything else I need to do in the middle.
I like it. And I like that you spoke about time blocking. Quite frankly, something that I'm not great at. And I definitely am hoping to do a little bit more of that in 2024. But I know that time blocking is a valuable tool, and I could absolutely see, similar to what you're saying, right? You're working in your business, you're working on your business, and then you have to find that time for yourself. So very cool. Are there any specific training programs that you're personally going for right now? I mean, do you train for some of the martial arts that you teach, or what is your focus?
So now that I've retired, I decided to get into the bodybuilding world for a short brief of time. And once I gained weight, I was like, I don't. So then I started training for a half marathon, which I did in February of 2023, which was quite liberating coming from a sprint background. I'm like, oh, wow, I used to hate distance running. I'd just die every time I did it. Now I'm getting into that realm. I've raced my mountain bike, cross country racing. I did that last year as well. So I was training for that again this year because it's the season for mountain bike racing. And then the half marathon I was going to do again is in February. But I got I don't know, tendonitis or something on my foot when I did an 8 mile run the other day because I wore some new shoes that were too tight. So I'm about 4 weeks into just cycling, just trying to get that to heal up. And I don't have a date on the calendar right now. But I train more now just for overall health and fitness, kind of like I do for my business professionals.
Okay, that's great. Well, I can tell you that in 2023, I completed my first half marathon also. So we're on a
Nice.
similar page there. And I agree, it was a very cool experience. Not only weather-wise, it was pretty chilly on the boardwalk in Atlantic City in the end of March.
Oh boy.
But it was also a really, really great experience in that in Philadelphia, we have a race called the Broad Street Run, which is pretty popular, but it's a 10-mile race. And I completed the Broad Street Run a few times, but I hadn't made it to that next level, which is the 13.2 or 13.1 half marathon. So it was a really, really cool experience. And I really felt good until around 11 and a half to 12 miles. And that last mile and a half to 2 miles was when it really started to I've really started to feel it a little bit. So training for some bigger things this year. So hopefully that will help me to get past some of the half marathon things.
Nice. I'm curious. What was it that bothered you? Because when I hit that same mark, like my hip flexors started to go. I started to feel my hamstrings a little bit. But I had somebody in front of me. I'm like, I get him. I got to get him. So that like competitive mindset came in, which overrode it. But yeah, I hit the same block move. Mine was hip flexors and hamstrings.
So big for me was that in all the triathlons that I've done, I've used goo gels for a little bit of carbs, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of protein. And leading up to the half marathon, a couple times I tried gummies, and I just switched. It's just a consistency difference. And I on 2 of my runs, I got a little bit of a sour stomach, and I said, "Oh, let me knock it down from having 2 gummies to having 1." And then I think that just really kind of kicked in. It was a lesson learned. I didn't do it the first time. It was probably the 3rd or 4th time that I had tried them, but I'm just learning that's not necessarily the best nutrition source for me. So I've gone back to the goos, and I have never had an issue with those. So I think it's just sort of, but I got a sour stomach. My stomach was really sour, and it was the first time that I ever really kind of felt that way. And being 11 and a half, almost 12 miles in, it was like, it started to become a little bit of a hitting the wall thing. Fortunately, I was on a path that was straight, The races in Atlantic City, you go sort of straight down the boardwalk to the end, get off, and then go straight down along the ocean, turn around and come back. So although I was probably a little bit more than a mile away, there was an overpass and I could see basically where the finish line was. So it was like, we were able to, and I had two friends with me who were good friends who were ribbing me a little bit and pushing me all at the same time. So that kind of helped me get to the end there too. Yeah. So very, very cool. So I want to jump over to the final segment where we ask the same questions of every guest. For you, Taylor, what is your definition of success?
I think the definition of success for myself is finding your passion that gives you fulfillment, right? So you need to find something that gives you some level of enjoyment, something that gives you time to focus in on, and then that it fulfills you in the long term. It shouldn't be something short term. It's a process, right? So success to me should not be finite. There should not be like a target of like us a half marathon time or a business hitting a certain revenue goal. It should be something that we constantly pursue and to elevate us. So it's that pursuit of passion for the ultimate fulfillment of the dream. So that's the long kind of definition of that. But success to me is passion and fulfillment for sure.
I love that idea of, almost it's more about the journey, right? It's more about the journey than the finish line. The other interesting thing about that, and this is more of a mindset thing, I guess, but is that if it becomes more about the journey, if it becomes more about, at one point it's about getting to your half marathon, but it's really about the process of getting there, that also makes success a little bit of a moving target, right? You kind of get there and you say, okay, what's next? Is next a full marathon, or is next a multi-sport, or is next something totally different? And that ability to say, although we talk about success almost as a finite type thing, it really is not.
Right. I think the goalpost should always have the ability to be moved, and not in a selfish way of more, but what's my potential? What can I accomplish? And that is the path itself, going through the journey and like, oh, cool, I hit this. Like, how much further can I go? Let's do it. Let's see. Let's do another metric, or maybe add in another variable that will maybe accelerate things. Maybe they go back. And it's just a learning process the whole time. But success is something that is multifaceted in the avenues of whatever it is that you're doing. And you can meet different people, have different mentors that will add to the level of success that you have in different ways. Like I think there's different categories of it, even if there's one target that you're kind of shooting for in the long term.
Yeah, that's great. So moving on to the second question, for someone who's newer to investing or learning to focus on their goals and their path to success, could you give a good book recommendation?
This is a really good one. It's kind of off the cuff as far as like strict principles, but I love The Alchemist by Paul Cohen. It talks about the journey, and looking back and seeing everything that you're doing and accomplishing in that time. Really, really transformative book. When I first read that, huge mind shift, right? Because I always was focusing on, I need to get this, I need to get there, I need to get there, I need to get there. And then you look back and like, wow, I just missed out on everything. So that book will bring to light the process of doing everything, and make you appreciate the things that are there that you might not have noticed before.
Awesome. So I want to circle back to something before we jump to the final question. I'm going off script here a little bit, but that's okay. So
Okay.
when you spoke about some of the pandemic, and this just sort of popped into my mind, and you talked about your initial business. One of the things that you said was that you didn't know how to market it, and you really didn't know how to sort of get it out there and publish it. As you've learned and as you've evolved, and I'm gathering you've learned more about marketing. I mean, are you using social marketing? What does that look like for you as far as a growth aspect, right? What have you learned, and what kind of skill sets were you able to acquire that you're now adding to this business that maybe were a little bit deficient in the first portion?
Yes. So with the brick and mortar, as we talked about earlier, kinesiology major, strength conditioning, nutrition. That was my forte. I opened the business with no business background. So I was forced to learn a lot. And I did DIY. This was YouTube. This was reading books. This was doing tons of self-research to find out what I needed to do. And then networking and trying to learn and pick other people's brains that have kind of walked those steps already. For the Crown Athletic side of things, my online, it was more networking because I just know people in like physical therapy, rehab, and they'd push people my way when they were about to elevate, and natural organic referrals.
Hmm.
As far as my brick and mortar, now it has more so grown because of mentors. Hire somebody. If you're going to pay, you're going to pay in time or you're going to pay in money. I have learned that I'd rather waste less time and find a mentor that could take me exactly where I want to go. So I have an agency that works with me. I have a coach that I meet with. I learn how business operates, what the best strategies are right now, how to serve my clientele even better to make sure that I'm ahead of the curve rather than finding about stuff that people are already implementing and I might be behind on just because I'm doing the research myself. So the biggest growth strategy realistically for any type of business professional is finding yourself a mentor that can accelerate everything for you. And I undervalued that for the longest time. Like, nah, I could do that. Like, nah, drop the ego, drop it, find somebody that can really help you and you'll see your business explode.
Yeah, I love hearing you speak about mentors like that because I think we all went through that phase. I think so many of us have gone through that phase of, I've said many times before, when I first started doing some house flipping and starting doing some repairs on houses and remodels, I went to YouTube University, right? And that's great because it helped me learn a lot of things. However, when I finally started utilizing mentors and reaching out to mentors, and then also following what those mentors had told me to do, it's made a huge difference. And it's made a huge difference in my mindset. I don't sit around and nickel and dime every penny that I'm willing to spend on things that are going to bring me back that kind of value. And it also helps me to understand, really what that value could be. So I love that you talk about mentors because I think mentorship is so important. And you're a coach, right? You coach people on certain aspects of their life, and then you're also seeking a coach to help you from your business aspect, and that's great.
Yeah, and even in my fitness journeys too, I hire somebody because I need that accountability. But I think the YouTube University is a great way to start and it could guide you in the right direction. But mentors definitely the way to go. Albeit there's so many out there now. You have to be careful with who you throw your money at because it might not be it might not end up pretty. So try to find somebody that's kind of utilized them. Somebody has the reputation, and then they'll take you far.
Yeah. Well, the biggest mentorship program that I'm part of, and I'm a part of a real estate investing mentorship program. So it was a 2-year program, and basically what I did was I went to their free events. I'm sorry, not their free events. They're events that were open to people who are outside of the mentorship program, and I paid to be there, but I was not a member and I was not a student at the time. And I had real conversations with real students and learned, about the culture of the community, because it's not just about the education. Sometimes it's also about the culture of the mentors, the culture of the educators, and do they align? I know in the real estate investment world, and I'm sure there's some things in the gym fitness world too. You can you find a lot of mentorship programs that value certain things, and sometimes there are mentorship programs where they're sitting around and talking about the private jet that you can be flying on. And the mentorship program that I spoke about that I decided to join had a lot of conversations around family and creating legacy wealth for your family and legacy skills for your family. That just fit the culture of what I was looking for.
Mhm.
I'm not saying one is better than the other. And so I agree. Learn about the program and then learn about yourself. What are you looking to get out of it? And what do you value? Because that's going to make a difference based on which program you want to select. And don't just say, oh, well, I don't value what this program gives, but it's a couple $1,000s cheaper, so I'll go that route.
Yeah, everything has to align with you. And if you don't have your values or your purpose or your passions kind of really written down, it'd be hard to find the right person. And I think that's a step for somebody to start making progress towards whatever they're looking for, is to have those values down, because culture is everything. And as cliche as it sounds, the sum or the average of your 5 closest friends is where your network is your net worth, success is your circle, all those little things. It's so true. And if you're in a place that you're not truly comfortable with, you're going to recluse. You're not going to really apply all the information that you're getting. And then you're going to have to look for something else. And you might not, because you had a bad experience because it just wasn't going to fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So we went a little bit to the left and turned back to the right. We want to get back to the final question, but that was awesome. I'm really glad we went down that road, because that was fun for me. Before we get to the final question, Taylor, how can we support you, and how can people reach out to you?
The easiest way is on Instagram. You can look me up, Taylor Ross, or Tayro Runs. If you're local to the area, Rise Athletics LA, that's the gym where we have a whole lot going on, and you'll find me in there. And I love conversation, so hit me up in the DMs and just chat with me.
Awesome. So final question, if you could think back with me to a younger Taylor, ages 10 to 12 years old, sort of knowing what you've learned so far on your journey, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to that young Taylor, or really to any pre-teenage child, to help guide them towards success?
In your early years, don't be scared of risks. You have lots of time to pay it back. Don't listen to other people that might try to put you down, and really try to pursue your passions. If you pursue your passions, don't listen to people trying to put you down, and take risks, you're going to fly way ahead of everybody else. And I genuinely wish I had better relationships with myself to actually apply that back then.
Well, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Healthy Investor Podcast. I really appreciate it. Make sure you check him out on all the socials, and go out there and make it a great day. Thanks so much for joining me on the Healthy Investor Podcast. Check out the show notes for more information about connecting with our guest. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please head on over to iTunes and leave a positive rating and review. It would mean the world to me. I'm grateful for your support, and I wish you an abundance of success on your journey to healthy investments and a healthy life.